Minnesota tonight. Minnesota tonight.
Hi everyone. Tonight we'll take 10 to talk about Target Field, which is a lot like Target because there you will see at least 9 people struggling in pajamas. As Minnesota's largest baseball stadium, Target Field is a great place to watch the Twins, a marauding mascot bear, and the bleached white bodies of Minnesota baseball fans. Those guys that you're seeing are not actually cheering, just writhing in pain from being exposed to sunlight for the first time in 8 months. Up until 2010, the Minnesota Twins played in the Metrodome, a place best known for the Minnesota Vikings. But after years of lobbying the state legislature, Twins won the right to build a new stadium in the North Loop of downtown Minneapolis. And since opening, the stadium has been named one of the best ballparks in baseball, especially for being environmentally friendly.
It's 2 more points than the Washington Nationals received. So Minnesota pride, we're very proud to have the greenest ballpark in America.
Shout it out.
Yeah.
Is that how you shout it out, or is that how an alien shoots out of your chest? But this stadium didn't come cheap. The final numbers show that Target Field cost nearly $500 million to construct, with more than 70% of that money coming from Minnesota taxpayers. Guys, they essentially Tom Sawyered us into paying for their stadium. But unlike the original story where Tom tricks his friends into paying to paint his fence, we built, painted, and maintained the Twins fence so we could watch glorified stickball and choke on $8 trash sausages. At this point, you may be asking, why would we spend so much money on America's second favorite pastime? To which I would respond, first, there's still a lot of room in the budget after accounting for America's favorite pastime, which is racism, which people usually just give away anyway. And secondly, we hoped the stadium would create new jobs. And by some estimates, we weren't wrong. Approximately 500 people work at Target Field on any given game night. But when you look at how many of those workers are treated, it turns out their conditions are just as disappointing as the Twins themselves. Take a look at what happens before every Twins home game. That's horrible. No one should stand in line for 3 hours without guarantee of work or pay. Unless you're a single dad outside of a One Direction concert, in which case, good for you for supporting your daughter. But that is only the tip of the iceberg. Local activist group Neighborhoods Organizing for Change looked into the conditions that hundreds of temporary workers were subjected to and found that stadium subcontractors have gone away with some pretty ridiculous shit. For example, all those workers seen in that video weren't scheduled to work that day. Instead, they were texted the morning of the game and then told to wait in line for work. These workers were treated like a late-night booty call. They might as well have sent them a text saying, "Hey, you up?" And the few lucky enough to work were paid in gift cards. Yes, gift cards. What an incredibly insulting way of compensating your employees. Let's be clear, there's no gift in a gift card. Gift cards are what forgetful cousins buy when they panic after realizing it's December 23rd. It's basically a middle finger in card form. Now, recently, some of the subcontractors at Target Field have admitted wrongdoing and started paying employees wages for their time spent waiting in line. But those employees aren't the only victims of such heinous workers' rights violations in Minnesota. For example, employees of Capital Building Group Services, a company that hires non-union janitors to clean department stores like Macy's and Herberger's, recently filed the lawsuit against their employer after getting paid only $4 to $5 an hour. That's right, these people were paid under half the state minimum wage to keep up the facade that Macy's is nice. Kimco Services, another cleaning service company, settled a court case for an undisclosed amount after workers complained about working more than 35 hours without pay. Unless they were part of a fantastic custodial internship program, that's bullshit. So in case it needs clarifying, not paying employees is illegal. But unfortunately, for the most part, the manner in which these companies have screwed over their workers has been within the bounds of state law. For example, there are currently no laws at the city or state level that prohibit employers from forcing employees to work while they're sick, subjecting them to sporadic, if not truly random scheduling, and paying them ridiculously small wages. And since there are no laws against these things, low-wage workers, many of them Black or Latino, are stuck in a cycle of where hard work doesn't necessarily mean more money, but more poverty. It's like the story of Sisyphus. If Sisyphus had to wait in line for 3 hours before getting to push the rock. The Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development estimates that the basic cost of living for a family in Hennepin County with 2 full-time working parents is $66,000 a year, which would mean that each of them would have to at least make $15 an hour. And even though the state of Minnesota recently raised the minimum wage to $9.50 for workers in large companies, many families in Minneapolis and St. Paul make barely half that, even when working full-time. Based off the statistics I just mentioned, the Minnesota state minimum wage has been deemed unlivable by the state of Minnesota. Now, if you assume that most minimum wage workers are kids living off their parents, trying to get extra cash for hemp necklaces, you would be wrong. The national average age of a minimum wage worker is 35 years old, and 27% of them are parents. As of the last count, that includes 64,000 people in Minnesota. This is infuriating, but there are measures that we can take to change these things. Let's take Seattle, Minneapolis's cooler older brother. In between bong rips and latte art, Seattleites have instituted many reforms to ensure fair compensation and working conditions for every person who works within city limits, such as requiring advanced scheduling, paid sick time off, and increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And while opponents have argued that this would devastate the local economy, it clearly hasn't. Seattle was named recently one of the best cities for small businesses, the fastest growing large city in the United States, and the city with the second best hotel Wi-Fi in the country, a real award that they really brag about on their city website. In Minneapolis and St. Paul, measures like those passed in Seattle are currently debated within the city councils, and you can help pass them by calling your city council representative and telling them that you support this legislation. Whatever your thoughts are on minimum wage or the protection of workers' rights, we can all agree that the target field workers do the jobs that keep the stadium running and the fans happy and entertained, which is a lot more than we could say about the Minnesota Twins. They have not managed to get to the playoffs in 5 years and have had only one winning season in that time. It says a lot about Target Field when the most successful thing happening there is their Bloody Mary bar. So we have an idea here at Minnesota Tonight. If it's too hard for the Twins to treat all of their temp workers with the dignity and respect they deserve, then they should treat all of their employees like they did their temp workers. So, hey, outfielder Max Kepler, get ready to find out about games the morning of by a text that says, "There might be a game, there might not, just show up." Feeling sick, second baseman Trevor Plouffe? Well, you don't get paid to be on the DL, so you better show up and try not to throw up when you're on base. What's that, prize hitter by Young Ho Park? Can't come to practice today because your kid is ill? Sorry, but we're gonna just have to let you go. And this is all perfectly legal and will remain legal until the city council takes steps to protect workers' rights. And finally, to all the Twins players, we couldn't find it in our hearts to pay you with real money. So instead, we will be paying you in gift cards. Hope that's okay with you, Joe Mauer, because over the next 2 years, you're about to get $46 million in Jamba Juice store credit. That's our show. Stay nice to yourselves tonight.
Minnesota Tonight. Tune in. Minnesota Tonight. Tune in. Minnesota Tonight. Minnesota Tonight. Tune in. Minnesota Tonight.